special report for you now. China and Russia now plotting an offensive, a currency offensive against the United States. It's going to take place in April at the IMF. All this on the heels of new tensions that are rising in Asia. As you know, General Mad Dog Mattis has responded to the Chinese and the Japanese, stating that the United States will stand by Japan if there is any attack on Japan, of course, with the Senkaku Islands now being buzzed by the Chinese. Of course, this is all global saber rattling. And here to talk to us now is Charles Thorngren. He is a he's been in finance for 25 years. He's with Noble Gold Investments, and he's here to help us understand exactly what this all means for your wallet, because at the end of the day, all these global saber-rattling actions affect us in some capacity. So, Charles, welcome to the Next News Network.
Thank you. Glad to be here. Thanks, Gary.
So, we just did a report on this. General Mad Dog Mattis said, yes, we will stand by Japan. We will hold by our Article 5 treaty if China decides to do anything. Now, personally, I don't think China is, but they are plotting something with Russia, as we just stated. Tell us more about what's going to happen at the IMF in April.
Yeah, I'd love to. You know, you see these maneuvers, and a lot of times with China, it's very hard to understand what they're doing. They're not as transparent as most nations are. And so you see these offensive movements, the buzzing of the islands and things. It's all a way to distract you from what they're planning on doing. And what we have happening in April is an IMF meeting, okay? It's going to discuss the reserve currency. As you know or may not know, the United States dollar has been the reserve currency for the world. With everything that's going on, that standing is not as secured anymore. We're seeing pressure applied by China as well as Russia. And we're seeing that in a way that really begins to minimize our effectiveness around the world, because besides power, the next thing people care about is money. And this is what we're talking about, reserve money for the world.
So they want to go ahead and change the reserve currency from the United States into what?
Well, that's the discussion. They know that they can't do it on just the yuan itself or the ruble itself. So what they want to impose is a basket of currencies. And what that will do for them is give them much more clout in the financial world. They want to have the ruble and the yuan included in that basket with the dollar. That will do a couple things. It will strengthen them. We already know that China has control of manufacturing. No question about that. But what we'll do then is give them the ability to use their currency to generate their own forms of debt to expand, okay? That's key, because it's going to cause the world to need less US dollars. And what will happen in that scenario, there's a couple different scenarios that could happen. One, it becomes much more difficult for us to be able to sell our debt to the rest of the world, okay? And two, the worst case scenario is people decide they don't want to hold that debt anymore because now they have options. Mm-hmm. And China doesn't have the deficit that the United States has. $20 trillion, that's a lot of debt. It's much more than we actually produce. It's larger than our GDP. So in effective terms, if we were a company, we would be a bankrupt company. Mm-hmm. And seizing this moment is seizing right at the right time where we have some weakness.
Well, it's a good thing that Donald Trump knows how to handle bankrupt companies.
This is true.
So let's talk about China for a minute, because we know that China and Russia, they are just vacuuming up gold. We know that's one of your strong points. You actually convert people's IRAs into gold. People can learn more about that at the link in the description too, or the phone number below. But the point is how does that tie into this IMF vote? The gold they're literally buying up so much gold. You can actually buy gold at a lot of their banks even too, in China.
Correct.
So how does the gold play into the IMF vote? Or does it?
What it does, it actually does. What it does, it plays into the vote, because regardless of what happens with that vote, you know that you have yourself protected. Take your IRA, get some form of protection against currency itself, because you now have an asset that moves counterproductive to the dollar. So if we see weakness in the dollar, gold goes up. Your values go up.
So China's buying up gold, and people can, I mean, if a nation does it in their own right, individuals can do that too through their IRA.
Absolutely.
But let's talk about Japan now. There was a Reuters report that was recently out, and it's actually really good news. You know, we're seeing the Japanese put together a package. I think it's $160 billion high-tech infrastructure investment. They're touting through the package 700,000 new jobs in the United States. How do you think that is going to affect? I mean, is it going to affect the economy? How? Because we're seeing all these new jobs popping up. We're seeing all these companies like, hey, we want to reinvest in America. We want to put these companies back in America. Are we going to see a ripple effect of prosperity that Trump said is going to make America great again?
Yes. That's the short answer. The long answer is we will, but it's not going to be as quick as we'd all like. Macroeconomics is not something that happens quickly. So you have your initial investment. Plants have to be built. People have to be hired. We will get to the point where all of the people who lost their jobs, you know, in 2007 and 2008 are beginning to get work back that is meaningful. They'll be able to start planning for their retirements again, be able to start doing things again. But that takes time. There's a lot of recovery that has to happen before we see the effects of that. The money being put in is going to be a fantastic thing for U.S. workers. There's a benefit for Japan for doing it. Obviously, you know, I'm sure they've negotiated some form of means where they're not having to pay tariffs or anything on that goods that are produced here. Getting the great American worker involved is also a huge benefit, and that will all pay off, but it's not right away. We have some scenarios where there's an immediate threat to your retirement. If you've seen, I mean, you have the Dow at an all-time high, and that is with tremendous debt being out there. It doesn't really make sense for it to be at the levels that it is. So expect to see some correction there, which is very normal for the market. You have cycles. Will it be as bad as 2008? Nobody knows, but it could be. It's gone much higher than it was in 2008. So there's a lot of risk there. Get yourself protected. Get yourself a portion of that retirement account and put it in something that offers protection against that kind of a collapse. And that's what precious metals does. And I think, you know, with these jobs coming back in, it's going to be great for America. But it's not going to happen for a couple of years. You're not going to see the benefit for that 3, 4, possibly 5 years from now. And that's just the way economics works.
So the process of actually converting your retirement account into gold, I mean, we're talking about tangible gold now, like real physical tangible gold?
Absolutely. And you can do like many of my clients do when it comes time to retire. You can have them actually deliver the gold to you if you decide you want it as gold instead of dollars. Absolutely.
Really? So you can get a big shipment of gold bars, huh?
Absolutely.
Wow.
And that's where the security is. It's a tangible asset. It's not something that's backed by someone's promise. It's the real thing.
So where do you source your gold from? I mean, there's probably many
all
places.
over the world. All over the world. We deal with all the major mints, world mints, governmental mints. We have an extension of our clients as well. We're here to buy back metals from our clients. So we get it from a variety of sources. And that's what really keeps it cost effective for our customers as well.
Now, what's the difference between, say, bullion bars and coinage, government coinage?
Government coinage is going to cost you a little bit more for the coinage. It does take a little bit more of a manufacturing process. And since you're buying it from the government, we all know the government doesn't do anything cheap. It's going to cost you a little bit more. But it also has that recognized value. So you can get bullion coins. There are many options available. Bars and bullion coins are the best bet for customers. You're going to have the least cost. There are some other assets out there. They talk about specialty coins and things like that. And if you were an art collector, yeah, we could do something there. But for your retirement, you go where the value is. Bullion bars, bullion coins, or a combination of both of them. And that's what my team here will help do for you. They'll help establish what is the best scenario for each individual customer. We can take, your scenario and what your personal portfolio looks like and tailor it so that we can get the best benefit for you.
Now, you mentioned the stock market before, uh, recently breaking 20,000. And you mentioned that you anticipate a correction in the market soon. How do you plan? How do you think that's really going to go?
Well, it's tough to say. It's really tough to say. Right now, there is so much uncertainty, not just within the world, but within the United States. We see the country fighting amongst itself. But what we don't see is a plan to keep the stock market propped up. We got here by all that quantitative easing. It wasn't based on yours and my investments in the stock market. It was based on your stock firms, the big boys, the banks. They all had that extra money that was given to them as part of what was necessary by the so-called Fed. What they said, we need this to help save the economy, and they put it someplace. They put it into the stock market.
Now, Bernie Sanders just came out. I believe he was on the Clinton News Network, and he said he called flat out called Donald Trump a fraud for hiring Goldman Sachs executives and for working to create an executive order that would repeal some key provisions of the Dodd-Frank bill. Now, Trump's excuse is that, hey, the banks need to be able to lend money so that these companies can take the money, expand, and hire more people. Now, Bernie Sanders and the critics of that say, hey, you're removing key provisions that protect consumers from fraud against bad investors. What is your take on this whole executive order to repeal Dodd-Frank? Is it a positive for who?
It's actually a positive for the government. It's a positive for people who want to control the way money flows.
How does it affect the individual?
For the individual, it's not so fantastic. And let me tell you why. If you tried to do any business and tried to get a loan recently, it's very difficult. They say it was standards. We have certain criteria that has to be met. Really, what it was about was it wasn't worth the bank's risk because what they would get in return on that interest was insufficient. That's why you saw all that money flow into the stock market. It was a game that they could control. They knew where it was going. They had all these financial firms that deal in the market that were there. And remember, the banks all bought a financial firm. When we had that issue with the stock market and everyone needed to be bailed out, the government decided it was a great idea to have banks buy these stock firms. And this is where you see that combination now. Bank of America / Merrill Lynch, JP Morgan / Chase. Now, that was all originally not supposed to happen. There was supposed to be separation there, but it was done to save us, as they said, okay? What you have now is, with interest rates being what they are, it doesn't make sense for a bank to loan money. They cannot cover their costs to run an operation for that loan. This is why you're seeing, President Trump saying, we need to remove some of these stipulations so that we can get money not just flowing, but flowing to the correct people.
Do you think it's going to create more jobs, as Trump says?
It couldn't hurt. We have a scenario now where jobs need to be created, but they need to be funded to be done for that to be done. So if you're a larger corporation and now you're worried about how do I, open up this new plant in the United States, Ford as an example, how do I spend $700 million to open this plant? It takes financing.
We're talking with Charles Thorngren with Noble Gold Investments. The telephone number is down below. If you want to convert your IRA, that is the number to call. And we're watching China, as we began this interview, we're watching China make some pretty bold moves, okay? We've seen the South China Sea tensions rising. We're seeing a transition team that everyone's just watching from afar, waiting for something crazy to happen. And of course, Mattis making his moves with Japan. So going back to the initial topic here, this IMF vote is coming up soon.
In April.
In April. What do you anticipate to be the outcome before we go?
It's tough to say. The IMF moves in very mysterious ways. They're not behooving to anyone. Um, but it's not out of line to see some form of split reserve currency. It's been talked about in the past, um, and based on the
A
numbers,
split
and
reserve currency? Does that mean a currency that has gold backing it?
that has been the talk in the past, but it's been removed because when you look at the amount of debt there is in the world, gold doesn't make enough of a difference to be included in that currency basket. And this is why you see China saying, hey, we're a great choice because we have so much gold. So not only could you make us part of that basket of currencies, our currency has value. There's a tangible asset behind it.
What do you make when people say that gold is going to hit 5,000 and gold is undervalued?
Gold is undervalued, no doubt about that.
Is it being
You
is it
know,
being artificially suppressed?
it is. It is. Some of it's done purposefully, and some of it's unintended consequence. With a Dow at 20,000, it's very hard for people to remove the emotion of trying to jump on board with that new high, and get themselves protected and get diversified. So unfortunately, with metals, you don't have the giant firms like you do with the stock market. You don't have a Merrill Lynch of the gold world. You don't have a JP Morgan of the gold world. Okay. So you see a scenario where obviously it benefits them to recommend to their clients to keep investing in the stock market. That's where they make their money. So when you look and say, can gold go to 5,000? It could. It could.
What would it take for the reins to just be the wheels? The reins come training wheels right off the gold, and then it just goes to it corrects to where it should be. Where should gold really be?
A fair value for gold right now, you'd be looking at $2,700 an ounce would be a pretty fair value.
Wow, wow.
And while we're saying that we talk a lot about gold, but silver is included in that conversation as well.
Do you encourage people to put? Do you do silver in the IRA?
Absolutely. We like to set up a basket of metals for our clients that make sense. And they both have a place depending on your investment parameters and the time that you're looking for towards retirement too. That's part of the factor we always look at, what's going to best serve you. But yes, gold and silver is typically included into that basket for that retirement account.
All right, Charles. Any final thoughts for our viewers and how they can take advantage of your program?
Yeah, I think the best thing to do is call us, talk with us, find out if this makes sense for you. As an organization, we're not a pressure company. We're here to help people. That's what we focus on. And you can see that in the reviews of our company. But give us a call. That's the best way. Find out, get the information, and make an informed decision. That's always the best way to go about anything. Spend the time, do a little research, and then make the decision that's right for you.
No, is there value to doing it? Obviously, it's important to put a percentage of your savings in gold. Okay, but with the IMF vote coming up, does that put any more pressure on the time frame of when people should convert?
It can. There's nothing worse than saying, you know what, I was thinking about buying metals, and now they've gone up in price. It's important to have them, so regardless of the price that you get when you start, you should really get protected if you don't have any, but no one wants to pay more than they need to. So it really is important. Give us a call now and find out. That way you're prepared. You don't want to have to go and, gold right now, just a little over $1,200 an ounce. No need for you to be paying $1,400, $1,500 an ounce for it.
Yeah, certainly you wouldn't want to be overpaying that if you can get it now. So buy low, sell high. That's the mantra, of course, and you can always get the gold yourself. That's cool. You can have it actually shipped to yourself and keep it in your own safe. Where do you keep this stuff? Is it kept in a safe or what?
For the IRA, it's stored in a depository. It's in a segregated account, so it's in its own box inside the vault. No one can touch it but you.
Wonderful. All right, Charles. Well, thanks for your insight, especially with the IMF vote coming up. That is something we should all be watching, and especially how Donald Trump's going to play. He's been a wild card since he started this election. Now he's the president, and we'll see how he responds if the United States is dumped as the world reserve currency. and of course Mad Dog Mattis in Japan, and of course the jobs coming back to the United States. All these things are good, but we are still on uncharted territory right now, and we're going to continue to watch it all. So better be safe than sorry. If you have savings in that worthless paper, you better act and get your stuff converted into gold. Charles, thank you for joining us on this program.
It was my pleasure. Thank you for having us.
All right, folks, you heard it here at the Next News Network. That was Charles Thorngren with the Noble Gold Investments Company. The link to ACT is in the description. As well, you can call the number on the screen to protect yourself ahead of any uncertain future, especially with this IMF vote coming up in April. Leave your thoughts and comments below. Subscribe for updates if you want to find out what's going to happen with that IMF vote. And of course, we appreciate it if you give us a thumbs up if you got something out of this report. For the Next News Network, I'm Gary Franchi.
You possess the power to impact the global narrative. Please share this report, and to get more videos like this, become a Next News subscriber by clicking the link below. Thank you for watching the Next News Network.